We haven't had to think much about how the Prime Minister of Singapore is chosen, because like most Westminster systems, who becomes the Prime Minister is not directly chosen by voting. So how is the Prime Minister of Singapore chosen? Well, the answer to that lies in Singapore's history. But unfortunately, the history isn't exactly long, nor is it straightforward. In many other countries with a Westminster system, the Prime Minister is usually the leader of the political party with a majority in Parliament. But unlike many other countries, the party leader isn't decided in a public election. The only thing that has been kind of consistent is that there has to be a consensus amongst peers about who is to be the successor to the Prime Minister. Let's take a look at it more closely. After the 1984 election, then PM Lee Kuan Yew left it to the second generation of leaders to decide who will lead them. Tony Tan, yes, our future President Tony Tan, invited 11 of his fellow young cabinet ministers to his house for coffee, orange juice and chocolate cake to discuss the matter. Lee Kuan Yew had made his preferences known very clearly and publicly, but ultimately it was a decision to be made by the ministers themselves. The story goes that Goh was late to the meeting and that Tan had ruled himself out, and that by the time Goh arrived, a unanimous decision had been made. The next day, Goh told Lee about the decision and subsequently submitted his recommendations for cabinet. On December 31st, Goh was announced as the first DPM designate, and it was made public that he was to be Prime Minister when Lee Kuan Yew steps down. After 5 years as DPM, Lee Kuan Yew stood down and Goh became Prime Minister. Lee Hsien Loong's potential to succeed Goh Chok Tong was in conversations from the very start of Goh's premiership. Lee was made DPM in Goh's 1990 cabinet. But of course, potential doesn't necessarily translate. A final decision still had to be made when the time came. In 2004, Goh instituted a process and hoped to entrench the tradition that involved more PAP leaders. 3 separate meetings were held to settle the issue. The first was amongst ministers and sought to gain a consensus for a choice. The second was to have this choice presented to PAP MPs and to have them suggest alternative names as well. None were submitted. The last was a presentation to the PAP CEC to seek an endorsement. At all 3 stages, the unanimous choice was then DPM Lee Hsien Loong. And so in August 2004, Lee was sworn in as Prime Minister. At the making of this video, Wong has been announced as a new leader of the 4G leaders, and hence the next Prime Minister when Lee Hsien Loong steps down. It seems that the process Goh hoped to institute was not recreated here. The process this time was different from Goh's. Like before, the younger generation was given the opportunity to voice out their opinions and preferences. But they now involved a neutral party, who sought views from individual ministers separately. Before a consensus is reached, those involved were also asked to rank the potential candidates in order of preference, excluding themselves. PM Lee and the 2 SMs were excluded from the process. The findings and decision were then presented to the group collectively, and subsequently the other PAP MPs, both of which endorsed the decision. In a press conference, Kaur shared, probably the first time in Singapore's history, the votes earned by Wong. So what can we surmise from this? Truthfully, there isn't exactly a concrete answer as to how the Prime Minister is determined. The only seemingly consistent determiner is that there has to be a consensus amongst peers. And if 3 data points are sufficient to determine a trend, then we can also say that the process is getting more transparent and more consultative. Guess we won't really know till we know.